When it comes to prisoners, what do you think? Should they be called clients or residents? Should jail cells be referred to as rooms? Dominic Raab is convinced that such, I quote, wishy-washy terms are denting public confidence in our justice system. The Deputy PM has issued a new style guide to all prison governors in England and Wales to crack down on so-called work language. What do we think to this panel? By the way, they did make me chuckle in the break because Austin said, he was asking me what I was saying. He thought I was talking about clamping down on work. I'm not talking about clamping down on work. I'm talking about clamping down on work. Two very different words.
Same thing.
Work, I blame the accent. What do you think to this? Style guides, work language?
Well, I mean, the fact it's called a style guide says, you know, it's as woke as it gets for me, I'm afraid. But it is this idea that in order to make people feel comfortable, or more to the point, prison officers feel comfortable about their charges, that they're calling them residents or something rather than prisoners. I mean, I work in academia. I mean, we've been calling students customers for the last 20 years, apparently. Yeah. So, and it actually diminishes and demeans the very relationship that we're trying to build up, one of trust and respect, as well as one of recognising deference and the fact that I know more than my students. So there has to be a certain level of detachment in this conversation rather than this kind of a clamour for engagement. But I do think that there's a difference between what they're trying to do with this conversation to normalise the relationship of prisoners within their rooms rather than cells, rather than humanising. And I do think that there is a lot more to be done with the kind of some of the barbaric treatment that's been handed out to prisoners. The treatment of prisoners under COVID is a chapter which will have to be written in the future because it was terrible. But I do think that there are certain things, you know, whenever I see people going into prisons with theatre groups or educational groups, or I've been in several prisons with the Debating Matters group, Debating Matters Behind Bars, to give it a plug, you know, and you find out that there's prisoners that just rise to the challenge because they are real, sentient, sensible, intelligent people. Many of them aren't, obviously. And I do think that, you know, to draw out that humanity and to give them a little bit of hope, there's nothing wrong with that. But this is just some kind of gloss on the surface.
Emma?
I mean, if Dominic Raab thinks the reason that we're losing patience and trust in the justice system is a few people calling a cell a room, rather than the fact that we have record waits for what ends up as very low conviction rates, record waits for low conviction rates for rapists, then he's on cloud cuckoo land. All he's trying to do is move the conversation from the difficult looking at how we should change the justice system. And I couldn't agree more with Austin that we need to look at how we treat prisoners so that they don't re-offend. People who are treated with humanity, as Austin says, given a chance inside to change their lives, are much less likely to be re-offending criminals, and isn't ultimately what we want, less crime. We want a justice system that produces less crime. So let's actually look at what matters. Let's look at making the courts actually work. Let's look at making prisons actually work. And let's stop messing around with stupid style guides to try and distract people from what a bad job Dominic Raab's doing.